Welcome back and thanks a lot for staying with us. This is Politics Tonight, where we dig and go beyond the headlines for informed analysis of major political stories in Nigeria. And tonight I've been speaking with a special advisor to the Senate President on Media and Publicity, Eyiboh, for discussion on Nigerian Senate's development agenda. All right, Honorable, now let's talk about the agenda of the 10th Senate. What is the main thrust of it?
Well, I'm sure you are aware that there have been a lot of well-intentioned bills, like the gender inclusion, which I know you are going to be very interested to hear that, like the issue of the persons with special needs, persons with disability, whichever, I don't know what's the new name now, and a couple of very instructive and development-driven bills. And if you follow the trend of the motions and bill in the Senate as we speak, you will now be able to know where this Senate is headed. This Senate, within the province of its capacity and the province of its mandate, this Senate is intending to strengthen institutions. Because once the institutions, our national institutions are strengthened, the issue of enforcement, whether it's enforcement of financial guidelines or enforcement of legal framework and all of that, we need it. Take, for example, recently, there was this story of about 500 women endorsing a protest over the sexual harassment of a professor of law in one of the universities in the South. And there have been a series of such harassments here and there. There are several laws in this country. But all what the Senate, all what the National Assembly requires is a collaborative and constructive engagement of the public, buying into the, you don't sit back to say, oh, look, the Senate have to pass this law, have to pass. Most of the laws have been passed and assented to. The Nigerians they don't bother themselves in research to know whether those laws are there or not. And the law enforcement agents, either the institutions, individuals, or even the internal regulations, for example, like the universities, they have their internal regulations. Some of them are not even being enforced. But are sitting down there to say, National Assembly should pass this law to pass those laws. What you need to do is that if in the course of enforcement, you find that there are lacunas impeding against the enforcement of a particular law, you have representatives across the country. You take it to your senator or a member of the House of Rep. They will now begin to engage, the possibilities of amending such law so that the laws will be strengthened. That's how institutions are being built. That's how the institutions are being strengthened. And that's how we can be able to get the best out of what we are doing. You don't expect Senate or the Senate or the House of Representatives to sit back and begin to conjure, situations around. Like this issue of sexual harassment. There is nothing wrong that traditional institutions could also participate in this process within their localities. The issue of enforcement of either internal regulation or customary laws, so that if they find themselves in collision in the course of enforcement, they have the benefit of reaching out, passing this through their representative, or when such law comes up for public hearing, you go and give your inputs. It is from there those laws can be amended. Those new ones can also come up. So the reason I'm saying this is because we Nigerians must take advantage of the favorable disposition of the present Senate. Now that we have people who can listen to us, now that we have a Senate that cannot be distracted, now that we have a Senate that is attached to the people, now that we have a Senate that is willing, ready, with capacity to be able to give us a Nigerian of our dream, who will be able to uplift our national aspirations. I think we have to buy into it and just do the basic thing we ought to do as civic responsibility by having those responses. So we are going to have the Senate churning out a lot of bills and motions as a complement to what they have been doing. They have gone so many steps ahead of the legislative agenda. What we are going to see now is going to be the unveiling of that legislative diet that Nigeria will be pleased to participate and have a feel of.
Right. So having said that, how do you think the Senate can align itself with the development agenda of President Tinubu?
Well, it is not a magic thing. The executive, I don't want to personalize it to say President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. If there is an initiative of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture or NNPC Limited or any agency of government for that matter, then they require the intervention of the Senate to be able to get that done. That is a collaboration between the Legislative House and the Executive. So whatever comes from any of the institutions, look at the issue of primary health. You and I know that we have suffered the devastating effect of poor policy on the primary health. You and I have agreed that...
I would like you to hold on for a bit. I would like you to hold on for a bit.
So I think what I was trying to say there regarding the bills, the bills and motions, these things are not fruits which are falling from the tree, either as a result of bad weather or as a result of healthiness of the fruits. It is a cultivation. It is a collaboration. It is a partnership. So the Nigerian people should also be able to, at the various domains, be able to now look at the emerging realities in governance, to now, and in some cases, some of those promises made by the potential representative at the time it were, to be able to come up with some of these things to promote positive, elaborate, and of course, a well-intentioned motions and bills. And that's where we will be able to have a road path, a thorough path, to our own collective aspirations of laws.
So how will you describe the relationship between the executive and the legislature in the country?
There's what?
I want you to describe the relationship between the executive and the legislature in the country. How will you describe it?
Well, I will not be able to, because the state, at the level of the state, the subnational, as you may want to say it, the transition at the subnational is like the race of red herring, because certain percentage, about 80% or above average of the transition process at the state level is a function of arrangement. And because it's a function of arrangement, such cannot exist and live productively, within the province of governance. But if you look at the national, the way the president image, the way the Senate president image, the way the senators and House of Rep members image, of course, at some point, even when the executive, when the party said, look, allowed one person to go for Senate presidency, allowed one person to go for House of Reps speakership. And of course, people said, no, you can't do that in the state. If you try it in the state, that legislature, they will declare your seat vacant without INEC, and you will remain at home. You will go to court there in the state, you will not win the case. So the state is operating as an island of corruption, an island where most of the states are an island where people have collectively decided to take opium and now live by the rules of the imperialists. So you don't expect such relationship to come to the national here. It will not work. That is why local government administration in most states, if not all the states, are not working. That is why the legislatures, if you go to the legislature at the state, 90%, if not 95% of the bills there are executive bills. You can't have private members' bill. If you need to have a private members' bill, you need to discuss with the governor or agents of the state. And non-state actors cannot participate in the process of governance at the state, because if you try it as subnational, you will be excised and declared a persona non grata. But in the national here, you hear where people will be abusing Mr. President, abusing the Senate President, coming up with all manners of rumor with an intention to poison and corrupt minds of right-thinking people to believe that anything serious has taken place. And they do and walk away because of the liberty in the freedom of speech, freedom of association, and the rest of it. So you cannot take the national government and compare with the subnational. They are far apart. The subnational are practicing politics from day one. When they are tired, they move into a transition of second term. If there was a constitutional third term, they will have gone into that. But the third term now, they are doing third term as subnational,
all right, Honorable.
surreptitiously.
But how do we ensure that the Senate plays its role of oversighting the executive effectively?
Well, in the national here, I can tell you, and you know, I know this question you are asking me is for the purposes of public enlightenment and education. It's something you know. I know you to be very investigative and developmental in your practice of journalism. So, but then for the benefits of the intention you and I are having to educate the members of the public, I'm telling you that the oversight is a very key thing when it comes to the primary responsibilities of the legislature, the oversight, the issue of legislation, and the issue of appropriation. But here, the National Assembly are so effective in the oversight responsibilities. That's why most of the things that executives are sending through the legislature, sometimes they are dead on arrival. And in some cases, the executive, no matter how hydra-headed, they recognize the fact that there is trouble that will be brewing if they refuse to seek the consent and approval of the legislature at the national level. So the oversight responsibility is not only recognized and respected. There is the issue of institutional authority, which the National Assembly, in this case particularly the Senate, have been able to effect, not as a matter of privilege or discretion, but in compliance with the constitutional provision of our laws. And you must know. Yes, ma'am.
Sadly, we're out of time. I wish we had enough time for this. Of course, there will be another time for us to have this conversation. Thank you so much for coming on Politics Tonight. Honorable Eyiboh is also a former spokesperson of the House of Representatives and now the Special Advisor to the Senate President on Media and Publicity. Thank you so much for finding time to join us on Politics Tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I thank you very well for pronouncing my name very well today. Thank you. I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Right.